The clock was ticking, but it wasn't decaying time. It was our surname. When my father died, he didn't leave me a fortune, just a dusty table clock. At first it seemed insignificant, but it turned out that clock would not only mark time, but one day open the door to justice. My name is Ethan Caldwell. I live in New Jersey. I am 33 years old. I work as a design engineer. My mother left us when I was 9 years old. My father, Walter Caldwell, was my only support in life. He was a smart, honest, proud man. But his name appeared in the newspapers for the last time like this. The body of a former entrepreneur who committed suicide was found in his home. The news presented it as the tragedy of a man who had failed in business. But I was his son, and I knew my father didn't do it willingly. Sometimes the truth whispers from gravestones. After the funeral, I returned home. The living room was still crowded, but I felt an eerie loneliness inside. I entered my father's study the last time. I had entered the room without permission was when I was a child, and I had been scolded. Dust, old books, and silence. On the desk sat that old clock which had never stopped working. A nostalgic American-made desk clock with a brass frame, roughly 50 years old. But this time, upon closer inspection, I noticed there was a thin scratch under the back cover. I took a screwdriver in my hand, and a small, rusty key emerged from under the cover. It was engraved with the initial M. It was very clear. Martin Donovan. At that moment, something strange settled in my heart. This was not just a key. It was the echo of something my father had buried in the grave, left for me. I thought about it for days. Where could the key belong? The production facility he had declared bankrupt years ago was still abandoned. I went there. The door was locked, but the back wall was still loose. I went inside, and behind a rusty door on the ground, I found a metal safe. There were no markings on it, but the key fit perfectly, and the lock clicked open. I held my breath, but the safe wasn't empty. Inside were dozens of folders written in my father's handwriting, typewritten letters, audio tapes, and wire transfer documents in foreign currency. The documents were legible, and each one pointed to a single person. Martin Donovan, my father's former partner. They had built the company together. They had become giants in textile exports. But then the company went bankrupt, or so it was said. Yet the documents told a different story. Martin had emptied the company's safe. He had transferred the funds to himself and forged the signatures. He had shifted all the blame onto my father, and then moved to Canada on a private jet as if nothing had happened. Years had passed. He was now an investor featured on the Forbes list. He was mentoring others and giving lectures at universities. He was being touted as an American success story. But do you know what he was in my eyes? A thief who had been shot twice and had the third bullet fired at himself. And the real pain was this. Martin's son, Tyler Donovan, my childhood friend, the boy I rode bikes with in the neighborhood, walked home from school with, celebrated my birthday with. We went to college together. We lived in the same dorm. Even though our families had drifted apart, we never separated. But now I realized, when Tyler called me brother, he knew what his father had done. Because among the documents was a confidentiality agreement signed by Tyler. At 17, Martin had made him part of this game. So he always knew. The man who came to bury my father that day, who hugged me, was the man who knew what was inside that safe. But do you know what I did? Nothing. That day I closed the safe. I put the key in my pocket. I went to Tyler. I touched his shoulder, and without saying a word, I looked into his eyes. He understood in that moment, but he denied it. From that moment on, there was only one thing for me. Not revenge, but exposure. That lie had grown over the years, taken root, and corrupted the surname of honorable people. I didn't want to uproot it. I just wanted the sun to shine on it. I didn't take my revenge by shouting. I crushed him with a whisper. When I closed that safe, nothing was the same anymore. I knew then. It wasn't a gun that put my father in his grave. It was a signature, and the man who signed it was still making millions of dollars. He was laughing. He was posing at charity events. He was on the cover of family magazines with his son. What did I do? Nothing. Not yet. Because men like that can't be destroyed by anger. They don't fall through fighting. They fall through documents. So I started my plan at my desk, alone. First, I digitized all the documents. I uploaded copies to 3 different encrypted disks. I chose a pseudonym for myself, Walter's Echo, my father's Echo. Then I researched. What companies does Martin Donovan have shares in? What banks does he have accounts in? Who does he do business with? What funds does he invest in? I tracked him step by step. Tax records, public court files, donation documents. I pieced them all together one by one. But I couldn't just dump all this out there. It wouldn't be a cry for revenge, but a documentary. I created a YouTube channel. Its name, The Donovan Files. I didn't use my own voice. I chose an AI-powered narrator. American accent, clear, clean, formal. First episode. Walter Caldwell's last day. My father's quiet downfall was told through documents the media hadn't seen. Visuals were gathered from archives. Letters, documents, and audio recordings were seamlessly integrated. Exactly 36 hours after the video was released. All the Reddit economics forums were talking about it. No one was sure if it was real, but the narration was so systematic, so clear, it couldn't be denied. The second episode was about Martin Donovan's rise, the first bankruptcy, the first secret transfer, the first forged signatures. I arranged the documents my father had archived in chronological order. In the final scene, Tyler's hush money agreement was shown. That signature, it was a turning point for me, because that's where the friendship ended. From that point on, I didn't want anything to go back to the way it was. In each episode, I delved deeper. I built each step calmly but powerfully. In the third episode, I focused on Martin's political connections. When did he donate to whose campaign? What tax breaks were granted in return? And then the fourth episode, that was the breaking point. In that chapter, titled The Truth That Came Out of the Clock, I presented the letters, audio recordings, and bank transfers that came out of my father's safe one after another. Conflicting dates, contradictory signatures, overlapping accounts. Not only the audience noticed, but the government did too, because one of the comments under the video was official. Dear Walter's Echo, we request that you contact us regarding the documents in this video. U.S. Department of Justice. That night, Tyler messaged me. It was the first and only communication throughout my entire plan. Is this you? I didn't respond, but I took a screenshot of the message he sent, and I included it in the next section, because it wasn't just Martin anymore. The Donovan surname was being questioned. Stock prices plummeted. His partners gave statements to the press. The media began running headlines like, "The rotten foundations of the American dream." Do you know what I was doing? At home, sitting in my father's old chair. I was watching the clock. Tick, tock. Every second seemed to unravel another lie from the past. I didn't scream. I didn't swear revenge in the courtroom corridors. Just with documents, silence, and a plan, I cleared my last name. It wasn't a scream. It was a whisper that echoed for years. I uploaded the last video. Title: The Fall of Martin Donovan. The video opened with the following sentence: An empire built by one man was destroyed by another man's silence. That night there was silence in the house, but outside all hell was breaking loose. News channels. New documents about American businessman Martin Donovan. Financial platforms. Donovan & Co. shares down 18%. Twitter, X. Did Tyler Donovan know about his father's crimes? Are the Donovan files real, or are they a big conspiracy? But none of them mentioned my name, because I wasn't there. There were only videos, and documents, and the clock. The next morning, the official email arrived. From the U.S. Attorney's Office, there was a PDF attached. Your application has been accepted as part of the investigation. On the same day, Martin Donovan was arrested at the airport as soon as he landed in New York. The press cameras were all over him. He was no longer a businessman. He was headline news. Billionaire Martin Donovan, charged with money laundering and corporate embezzlement. When I first saw the arrest footage, my hand shook. Don't lie, a mix of anger, a mix of relief. But the main feeling? Silence. A deep, finished, complete silence. And Tyler, he too was buried in silence. At first, he denied it. Then he closed his social media accounts. Then the Donovan Foundation suspended all its activities. What did he do last? He applied to change his name. He tried to erase the Donovan surname, but I left it in a place where he could never erase it. The archives. In every video, under every document, that signature is there. Tyler Donovan. The child who signed the silence. The adult who carried his father's sins on his back. A few weeks later, I went to my father's grave. I was alone, but for the first time in years, my heart was at peace. That old clock was still ticking. I brought it. I placed it next to the tombstone, and I said softly, "Father." You were silent. I didn't speak, but I made others speak. If you've followed this far, you've seen a man's silence, a son's whisper. This is not just a story. This is proof of how truth speaks when the time comes. So if you were in his shoes, would you take back your name or your money? Write your comments. If there's anyone else out there who's remained silent like me, let them know. Time speaks with the right documents. If you want to follow the rest of this story and see other truths unfold, subscribe, and that moment may one day ring on your screen too.